Okay, guys, good evening and welcome to our Monday night call. I am Christine Savicki and Val is here with us.
Hi, everyone.
And tonight we are going to be talking to you guys about a topic that we think is super important. Actually, not that we think is super important, but that we know is super important in order to see success. So we are going to just get right into it and tell you that our main focus tonight is going to be on momentum and the different types of momentum and also the systems involved in it. So I'm going to talk about momentum, what it is, and Val is then going to talk about the systems that are involved with it. But it's really important for you guys to understand that there are different types of momentum and they all kind of work together. They're all kind of intertwined. So first thing is I wanted to give you the definition. Val and I have recently become a little bit obsessed with our buddy Bob Heilig, and we were talk about being super disappointed that when we found out that he was going to be the guest speaker in Maui, and we had chosen not to go this year. But so that was a kind of a huge disappointment to us, but we have been doing a bunch of training together, following him, listening to his podcasts and stuff. And his definition of momentum, he says that momentum takes place when there's a lot of new and exciting people following your system and getting results. That is where, that's basically what momentum is. And personally, we could not agree more with that. So a lot of new people joining, they're excited, they're following your system, and they're growing, they're seeing success with the products and the business. So I personally love this topic because I can personally relate to all three types of momentum that we're going to talk about tonight. But it like I said, it's really important for you to understand that there are different types of momentum. So the first one that we're going to talk about is personal momentum. And there is also company momentum. And the third is, which I think definitely is the most important, is, and where definitely your focus should be, if you're really looking for true freedom when it comes to network marketing, you should be focused on team momentum. That's where you're going to see, long-term, true, sustainable time and financial freedom. So, out of breath here. Too
much talking in 2 minutes.
So, personal momentum is this. It's when you are personally seeing results in your business. It's when things are happening for you, right? It's when you're getting customers, you're getting personally sponsored ambassadors. You personally are not having any issues with creating success in your business. Now, that all sounds awesome, doesn't it? But of course, we're going to tell you that there is a little problem with that. So all of your hard work and your personal momentum is not necessarily being translated to your team. So it is definitely possible to be in personal momentum, but not have your team experiencing the same results. So I will say this, that it is super important, and it is the absolute first step in creating team momentum. The first step in creating team momentum is personal momentum. So if you have been here for a while, then you have definitely heard us say this over and over again. And if you're new, you're going to hear us say this over and over again from here on out. The speed of the leader is the speed of the team. What does that mean? It means that the leader is setting the speed at which your team is growing, and that you are leading as a leader, you are leading by example. It is so important, guys. We cannot expect our teams, our ambassadors on our teams, to do something that we ourselves are personally not doing. You just can't expect it. You cannot ask them you can't just tell them, to go and do something. they actually want to see you doing it as well. Okay. So lead by example. Focus on what is most important and consistently do that over and over again. Okay, so focus and consistency. And what should you be focusing on? Obviously, you should be focusing on your IPAs. It's super easy to get, lose your focus, right? I mean, you hop on Facebook and you go on with the intentions of maybe sending out some personal messages, talking to people about following up with them about their samples that you sent to them. But what ends up happening is you get lost in Facebook, right? Or you click on one thing and it takes you to another, and takes you to another, and takes you to another, and before you know it, it's like an hour later, and you're done. Like you've got something else to do, and your power hour's over. So you have to remain focused and you have to remain consistent over time. So that's going to be the number one thing, which is going to lead you to the results, which basically creates personal momentum. Okay. So hopefully you all have read GoPro by Eric Worre, but if you have, you've definitely heard him preach this. Slow and steady and network marketing definitely does not win the race. Okay. In network marketing, success loves speed. So again, you as a leader, and when I say leader, I don't mean an emerald, a sapphire, or a diamond. I mean one person on your team. Okay. Whether you're not even silver yet or you're on your way to diamond, you are a leader. So you are the one who's going to set the pace for your team. And you may be thinking like, what am I supposed to do? My team we're kind of just sitting here and nothing's happening. Well, I can pretty much guarantee that if you get to work and you go out and you sign 3, 4, 5 people that your team is watching you do this, and you're leading by example. Okay. You are setting the pace to basically, you're setting the pace and giving your team, basically setting some expectations, right? Like I know they say don't do as I say, don't do as I do. But in this instance, obviously you want your team to be doing what you do, and they are going to, whether that's positive or negative. So you definitely want to lead by example and set the pace. That you kind of want to set the standard that you as a leader, you don't want to be outperformed, or definitely you don't want to be out efforted. Okay. Absolutely believe me that, you might set that as your standard, but that's not always what's going to happen. Someone on your team is going, and that's also the beauty of network marketing, right? Someone on your team, may outproduce you, may outrank you, may out effort you. But as the leader, you are there to cheer them on. You're there to be there to support them, be their biggest cheerleader. And, but that is what needs to be your motivation. Okay. So here's the thing. And what I want to talk about, like, what's the most important thing when it comes to personal momentum? You may have a system that is working personally for you, but if your team is not growing, then that is your very first indication that your system is not really working. Okay? If it's not being duplicated by your team, then that's your clue that you're not in team, that the system that you currently have personally it's not working, because it should be duplicatable. So now we're going to talk about company momentum. And luckily for us, we say this all the time, we are with the right company at the right time. And that is absolutely, absolutely true. We had a year, maybe a little longer. I can't even remember, Val, anymore, like how long it was, because it happened and we put it out of our mind and we just moved on. And, but
the back office debacle.
Yeah. So that was back in 2015, 16.
It was 15. Yeah.
So it was a good year where the company slowed down. And it didn't slow down because of anything we were doing wrong. It was basically just some growing pains. I know I keep looking over to the left if you guys see me looking to the left, but I'm kind of looking at Val. Do I look like I'm looking to the looking?
Yeah, you look like you're reading something.
I'm looking, I feel like I'm looking over to you and so our company slowed down in between 2015 and 2016. And it wasn't because we were doing anything wrong. It was because, like I said, we were just going through some growing pains and the company was doing what was best for us. But other than that, Plexus has had nothing but growth, over exponential growth, really, over the past 10 years. We're constantly having new products being introduced. Everyone wants to join us. We're seeing a huge rush of people. And this has all been amazing, and hopefully it's going to last for a really, really long time. But the bottom line is that it's going to end eventually. We're going to hit a plateau. It's not going to end. We're just going to hit a plateau, okay? But it's what you're doing. It's what you're doing during the company momentum that really makes a difference, because Plexus isn't going to go anywhere if we hit another plateau, right? It's just the way that business goes. There's just peaks and valleys. It's just the ebbs and the flows of this type of business. So inevitably, it is going to slow down a little bit. But again, it's what you do personally during those valleys that really matters. Because here's the thing. You may personally know someone. We know someone. We had a lot of ambassadors on our team during this valley that we had who thought that this was, that Plexus was going under, that just because we lost momentum, and they kind of jumped ship, right? And they they may have jumped and went to another MLM. I know personally, I saw this with a lot of people on my team. And what they probably basically found out is that they went to this new company, and then that company hit a plateau. And that person was now experiencing the same thing that they experienced when Plexus was in a valley or in a plateau. They were experiencing that because they personally made the same mistakes that they made with Plexus, which basically was that they did not set themselves up while the company was in full momentum. So they ended up experiencing the same frustrations with company 2 that they had experienced with company 1. So what you need to learn about company momentum is that while the company is in full momentum, which luckily for us has pretty much been for, the majority of the 5 years that I've been here, you need to really be proactive and make sure that you're building a solid foundation for long-term growth. And I definitely can tell you that if you build the right foundation and you focus on creating that momentum, that it's definitely going to soften the blow when the company is not in full momentum. I don't say this to brag or to boast by any means, but when we were going through that, did it stink? Yeah, but I'll tell you what stunk most of all was everyone else freaking out.
Yes. It was bad.
It was bad, but
yeah. It was everyone else freaking out, though. That's what was making it much harder.
Yeah, but because we had set ourselves up with a good foundation, you didn't see us freaking out as much because, we weren't feeling like everyone's, that like our businesses were now going to be failing because we had set up a good solid foundation. So just remember, you should be in personal momentum always, but especially when the company is in full momentum, because inevitably there's going to be a slow period. So you want to set yourself up for success when that slow period comes. So the last type of momentum that there is, obviously, is team momentum, right? So we have personal momentum and company momentum, but really the most important type of momentum is team momentum. If you want to win and you want to see people on your team be winning, then, and you really truly want to experience true freedom, financial freedom and time freedom, then, and you want to have a long-term sustainable business, then you must have team growth. I'm telling you, the only way to get there, you can't do it alone. I've said this over and over and over. You cannot build this business by just signing level ones. Your team has to be, you have to set up a system, which Val's going to talk about, that your team can duplicate so that your team is in momentum. I can tell you that personally, that when your team is in full momentum, you do not need to worry about taking any amount of time off, really. We have both taken vacations and we've unplugged. We've, gone away for the weekend and didn't feel like we needed to pick up our phone. But I will tell you, that I really experienced the true importance of team momentum a few years ago when Bailey was born. So when Bailey was born in November of 2014, I got really sick after her birth, lucky to be here today, kind of sick. So, and I was instructed by my doctors to do absolutely nothing other than rest and take care of her as best I could. So the one thing that they absolutely stressed, because I was having seizures, was to absolutely not get on the computer, do not get on my phone. So I will tell you, I think God kind of had a hand in this, because it is the one and only time that, because who really obeys doctor's orders when you have a Plexus team, right? So of course, I tried to hop on Facebook, and it is the one and only time that I was ever locked out and put in Facebook jail. So just coincidentally. But so even if I could have gone on, I was locked out and there was nothing, and I could do nothing. So even though that, period of time of like not being able to be on Facebook or the computer, looking at my reports and looking to see how my team was doing, that may have only lasted for a few weeks, but my recovery lasted for at least 6 months. So the contact that I had with my team, other than chatting with them over the phone, was definitely pretty minimal. Once my restrictions for being on the computer were lifted, I was able to be on the computer for maybe about an hour a day for the first few months. But I will tell you this, that between Bailey being born on November 14th and March 30th, which was a good 4 months, I ranked a Sapphire. And that absolutely would have never happened if my team was not in full momentum. That really was basically the first time that I experienced team momentum, and the importance of building a really good foundation and building other people and creating a culture where your business basically doesn't need you every single day. So definitely, I definitely became aware of how important that my team and the momentum of my team was more important than anything else. And I realized that I could still earn a paycheck without basically being able to hop on my computer for a few months. So I'm sure that you all are asking, like, how do you create team momentum, and how basically you have to set clear expectations of your team, right? Like, what are the goals, and how are you going to hold them accountable? So if you're looking, like, if you're new, what's your 30-day goal? Talk to your new ambassadors and talk to them about where do they want to be? Where are you going to hold them accountable in 30 days? Same thing goes for if you're looking to rank, if you're looking to meet your next rank. How are you going to break that down, and what areas in your business do you need to work on in order to get there? So, as a leader creating team momentum, you need to show people. Okay, I did this a long time ago, and I realized how much it truly, truly works. You really need to show people in black and white, literally in black and white. I have a note on my phone that I send to people and show them, this is what you need to do, and this is how much money you are going to make. Like, people want to see that. It needs to be explained to them in the easiest, like, most understandable way. So you need to basically write it out for them, show them what it's going to do for them, and you need to be present for them. And you need to be, I really feel like you need to give your personally sponsored ambassadors, and even down to your level 3s and 4s, you need to give them your time. You need to be present for them. But remember, we're talking about the people who are performing on your team, okay? This doesn't mean for every single level 1 through 4 that this is what you give them. You give this to the people who are working and showing you that they're showing up, basically. And when you really get down to it, and I'm sure lots of you guys have already read this, but it's basically like 80 to 90% of your team is not really even committed. So you're kind of working with 20% of your team, because if someone's not really even committed to their own business, then you can't expect them to be committed to growing a team, right? So basically, you're going to be working with 10 to 20% of your team. And you're going to be working, again, with the people who are performing, who are showing up, the ones who are committed, the ones who are willing to go out there, and they're showing you that they're doing the work. So holding them accountable, and, just reminding them, having those weekly calls with them and showing them, like, this is what you committed to last week. This is where you are. I think it's really important I'm a visual learner. I think it's really, to me, important for us to show our team, like, where they are in comparison to the rest of the team. Some people may not be motivated by that, but most people are motivated by that. So, that's why you may see us doing, like, the 200 PV club, or the top 10 or 50 or whatever it is that Amy does, because there's so many of us on our team. But you can duplicate that with your team. Even if you have a team of 20, and you do the top 5, that's going to keep those top 5 wanting to be on that list next month. And it's going to have the people who, weren't on that list, maybe that just missed it by a hair, it's going to motivate them to want to be on that list next month. So, being accountable and holding them accountable and having some transparency is really important. Vale's going to move in to the next section about systems, but I'll tell you, team motivation, like I said, it's the team part of it that is key to exponential growth, if that's what you're looking for. But it's not without a clear set of systems that are in place. And luckily we have those, for you guys. But without duplication, team momentum is hard to create. And without personal motivation, personal momentum, team motivation is going to be pretty much non-existent. So now that I don't have to look back and forth between the camera and my little thing over here where I can see everybody, I'm going to let Val take it away and talk about the systems and how they're important in creating momentum.
Okay. When Chris was talking about how she was able to step away from her team and how we are able to, take a weekend here or take a vacation there and not have to worry about our team, that's part of team momentum. And the thing with team momentum is having systems in place, which we actually already do. We want people to be able to duplicate what we're doing. I think that, we've set all these things up, but, I'm guilty the same way other people are and not implementing them correctly. I think, we have great systems in place, which, I'm talking about the first step group, the 321 ATM, putting people in Plexus Success and tagging them, messaging them, using the IPA worksheets that are in our back office, directing people to this Monday night call, to opportunity meetings that are held locally if you have that, in your area. There's all kinds of resources, but it's how we're implementing them. So let's take, for instance, the first step group that we have that Amy just designed. I know there should be a ton more people in there, and there's not right now. So that means people aren't adding their new people to this group. And I've done this myself. I've said to people, okay, I'm going to add you to this group. I'm going to add you to this group. Just read through some stuff and then let me know if you have any questions. The problem with that is that most people are not going to do that, okay? So I think if you say you're adding them to the first step group, walking them through it and saying, here's the first step. I want you to read this, and tomorrow I'm going to follow up with you and see what questions you might have, and then we'll move on to the next step. That way, that they're reading it, they're asking you the questions pertaining to that specifically, and then you can move on. And the thing with this is that we want people to be dependent on the systems, not on people. And the reason for that is that if me and Chris were out of this country and we were the only two Jules and we couldn't answer your question, you would already know what to do, where to find the answer, and where to tell your people to find the answer, and so on and so on. So the thing is, if we are doing this ourselves with every new person, that new person is then going to do that with their new person. And then they become dependent on these systems versus people. I mean, we're not saying that we're not here to help people. That's not what we're saying. But we want it to be duplicatable, and not everybody is a leader, has the same time that we may have. So you may not be getting the same thing out of that person, if you understand what I'm saying. So if you always have these systems in place, then you'll know exactly where to go. And I mean, things as simple as, Jackie signed somebody new today. So, she messaged them and says, I just want to let you know, tonight's a Monday night call. I would love for you to join me on this call tonight. Invite her invite these people as a friend so that they see what's going on. And you're not just like, oh, by the way, there's calls on Monday night. It's leaving it open and not holding people accountable. So that's part of this system too, is holding people accountable. And I want to backtrack on something Chris was saying earlier about the setting clear goals for people. If you go through your back office and look at where, your two level ones, one has 20 points, one has 35 points. Sit down and talk to them and say, where do you want to be at the end of this month? What is realistic? If they come to you and say, I want to be a senior ruby, or I want to be a senior gold by the end of this month, we know that that's not realistic when they have 20 points in their organization. So let's work on how we're going to get 5 points added this week, how we're going to get 5 points added next week, whatever their goal is and where they want to see themselves. That way, you're holding them accountable, you're helping them through it. And Bob Helig was suggesting, 60 to 90 days working with somebody new and holding them accountable, right?
90 days.
Yeah. And I don't think that that's that long of a period of time. Once they get it, they're going to be able to then do this with their own people. And, all of you on here who are on this call are leaders. You don't have to be emerald or above to be a leader. So, we want you guys to be able to use the systems. I know there's people on here that don't add people to all these groups because they don't want to, overwhelm their people or, whatever it may be. But that is, these groups are important. Make a list. I'm going to add you to Goal Diggers, and this is where we recognize and welcome people, and this is where the fun stuff is. This group is for business builders. You'll find all kinds of business tips. And when you see something in there that you think, relates to them, message them. Don't just tag them. That way they can, that they're seeing your message. They know that they're going to go back and read it. The biggest thing really is building a culture of people depending on systems versus people, so that it's completely duplicatable and that we don't have to, try to reiterate this every time. It's one person to the next person to the next person. And keeping things simple. Define everything that, you expect from them, and how things work. And I think that it will, be beneficial to your team. I'm trying to think of other things. Action-based systems would be the IPAs. You want to be doing that with them. And if they don't know how to do that, give them verbiage on how to reach out to people.
And that's all, again, I don't mean to interrupt you, but again, that is all in the first steps.
Yeah.
I feel like, people are not using that system that we have created. It's people ask for a system and now we have it. So now it just has to be utilized. It's all right there in black and white, like verbiage and all, videos to watch with every single step. So it's all right there.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have the systems in place. I think it's just the way that we're utilizing them needs to be tweaked a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you agree? I think that's, it's the system.
I think that the people, I just think that they need to be used a lot more often. Like as soon as someone is signed, you add them to the group, and then, like I was telling Jackie, so Jackie's question was, that was me. Jackie said, how can we tell them which post and walk them through it without tagging them? So here's the thing. If you use the units tab, I mean, it's basically the same things as if you click on discussion, you're going to see like the introduction, and then you're going to see step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. But there's also, you can click on units instead of discussion, and it's basically going to bring you the same thing. But you can go through the entire unit, and then you can click the box to say that you're finished, that you have completed it. So maybe, when you sign a new ambassador, you tell them, hey, I'm adding you to this group. Next, say they're on a Monday. Like next Monday, I have 12 to 1 available and 2 to 3 available. Which time works best for you? They're going to give you a time. Great. Go through the first steps. Go through unit 1. When you finished it, click the box that says you've completed it, and come up with your list of questions. And between 1 and 2 next week, when we meet, we're going to go over your questions and do that weekly. I mean, there's 6 steps in there. So that's 6 weeks. That's definitely not your 90 days. That's only, a month and a half. You're only halfway done, really guiding your new ambassador. So
directing them to other things like the calls, and then, talking to them afterwards. Yeah. Talking to them afterwards and asking, what their takeaway was. Do they have questions about that kind of stuff? Anything that we went over, because, somebody new on here tonight might be confused as to what we're talking about. And I remember when we first started, or at least when I first started, Kathleen had handed me like a piece of paper that said, these are the groups that I'm putting you in. This is Christine's group. This is, they were different then, but there was like a made up list of where she was adding me. So I knew exactly who belonged to who, what leader was the head of that group, and what to expect from that group. So, that might be something helpful to start back up too. If we, making lists for our people and getting them, explaining what is in each thing. Because I know when somebody starts, they're like, oh, I feel overwhelmed by this. But when you're once you get in the momentum of it, basically, no pun intended, but once you get in the momentum of it, it's really not overwhelming. You're able to keep up on what you need to, especially if you're focused and doing what you need to do.
And again, this is really, it's duplicatable, right? So if you're signing someone, and it's the same thing we all did back, years ago. We signed someone, they watched us. They knew what to do, right? They saw us posting. They were like, okay, so I guess I need to post. Christine's got this group, so I need to create this group. I'm going to create this group. And she added me to Amy's team page. So I'm going to add my people to Amy's team page, and I'm going to add them to her page too. People knew what to do. So they're going to do what they see you doing. So you need to lead by example. So you're the one who's showing them the way. Okay. So add them to first steps, go over each step with them weekly, add them to Plexus Success, tag them and they're going to know that that's what you're doing, because before you sign them as an ambassador, hopefully you've already added them to Plexus Success and tagged them in a testimonial and reached out to them and followed up. So they know that that's kind of the way that it goes.
Right.
But again,
and then they'll do the same. They'll end up doing the same.
They're going to duplicate you, and then hopefully they are also going to lead by example.
Right.
So, yeah. So I think that kind of about covers it. I think it's just really important to realize that there are different types of momentum, and what might be working for you personally. If you're not seeing growth in your team, then you really need to take a step back and kind of evaluate what is not working, why it's not working. And, realize that if, what you're doing may not be duplicatable. But also, while we are in this amazing growth that we are in with our company, make sure that you're building that foundation through your personal momentum and your team momentum while the company is in momentum, because eventually we're going to plateau. I don't know when it's going to be. 5 years from now, we're going to have another back office, or something inevitably is going to happen. So set yourself up for success so that you are not the one freaking out, so that you are the one who is calming your team down and letting them know that this is just a bump in the road. But I know that you all have taken the time out. You take the time out every single Monday night, let alone, whatever else you're doing to grow your businesses. So that tells us that you are in this for longevity, right? You want to build a sustainable business. So the way that you need to do that is to create team momentum. So if you still after this call feel like you're not sure where to begin, then make sure you get with either one of us or with your sponsor or another leader, so that we can help you and maybe troubleshoot where the issue lies. But if you guys have any questions, do comments or anything. I know, yeah, Robin said that's really helpful. I think First Steps is so great, but it takes some time learning how to use it. hopefully answered that question for you. Here I am out of breath again, but hopefully I answered that question for you, Robin. Basically in the same way that I answered Jackie's question, you know, just going over it with them, you know, signing a new ambassador and basically setting up calls. I think the weekly calls are super important because again, it's going to hold your ambassadors accountable. It's going to hold them accountable. So
yeah, if they know you're going to be calling them the next day and asking them questions, then they're going to read the information.
Yeah.
So
anybody else? All right, guys. Well, we ended a little bit early, so everybody go, and hopefully I'm going to post this tomorrow. Share your takeaways with us, and then let's go create some momentum. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye.